Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I am Bill Schlund. We'll be going through the solving of the top 5 PDM problems and how Onshape looks at this. So first of all, let's kind of start at a baseline is what does a PDM or PLM server? What does it do? It allows companies to set up and back up processes. It manages versions, revisions, things like that. It prevents multiple users from overwriting existing data. The problem that you might have if you have a shared drive and people are storing things to it. So it protects that using the check-in, check-out approach. So you can check something out, other people can see it, but they don't get any updates until you check it back in. It also gives companies a central location to work out of. Right? So instead of it being distributed, everybody just goes to the PDM, PLM server to access their data. And it also allows for searching of the CAD data or any other data that you do have in there. So if we look at the way Onshape works, it gets rid of 2 of these right away, right? Allowing companies to set up and back up processes. The one thing with Onshape is everything that you do is backed up forever. The third one, we have prevent multiple people from overwriting data, check in, check out. There is no concept of checking in and checking out. Everybody has access to the same data at the same time. Should you share that with them? And we'll see that coming up in a little bit. So now a lot of the 40% of the problems that I just listed here are already solved just by the nature of the way Onshape works. But we'll go into these. We'll go into 5 problems and we'll talk about them a little bit more in depth now going forward. So the first problem is hardware and infrastructure. If you get a PDM system or PLM system, you usually load it on a server. A lot of times it has to be a separate server to do that. So there's a lot of cost involved with that server. There is a significant IT overhead because there's people that have to babysit not only the software, but make sure the server is up and running. There's updates, there's hardware updates, there's software updates, service packs, all of those things that need to be done. And then if you have a company that might have multiple locations, you'll have to decide how you want to allow people to access the data. You can create duplicate servers, right? You can sync those up. So maybe push a file server off into Asia someplace to distribute files over on that side of the world. It allows people to access that data quicker, but then now we have to sync those servers and make sure that they're always up to date, and there's all kinds of work involved with doing that. The way that Onshape works is everything's in the cloud. So there is no infrastructure. Well, there is, but Amazon takes care of it, right? So we run on Amazon Web Services. So the servers are there, the software is there. Really, all you need is a way to access the cloud. And the nice thing with Onshape, as you notice here, we have 4 laptops, and they look hauntingly similar to one another. You don't need that. Onshape runs on a lot of different hardware platforms, just about anything that's out there. So it runs on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, Chromebook, iPhones, iPads, Androids. As long as it can access the internet, you can access Onshape. The nice thing about that is some companies say, we're a Dell company, we're an HP company, we're an Apple company. It doesn't really matter. We can work with any of those, and maybe you don't have to be a Dell company anymore. If you can get a better deal on something else, some other type of hardware, do that. So talking a little bit about accessing Onshape, I just want to show you that real quickly. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to log in to Onshape, and what we see here, I'm using Microsoft Edge in this example. I'm going to be using all the different web browsers today, but here we can see, the different folders I have access to, different files that I've been working with. If I want to look for a file, I can search for it by what type of file are we looking for, the name, the description, maybe what state is it? Is it released? Is it pending? Is it rejected? I can also search by user-defined metadata. So these are all the things that you would see in a PDM/PLM system, but they're here in Onshape in the CAD tool. So I'm going to call this up just to show you. Here's a generic part that I bring up that I can start working with and start manipulating or sharing it with other people. And again, I'm using my laptop. I can also come over here and use my phone. So here I have my phone. We can see an example of a boom that we have here. You can take the boom, maybe manipulate it a little bit. But the thing is that hardware independence is really liberating, right? And it's nice to be able to access data wherever you are. So if I need to, how many times have you heard it? I can do that when I get back to the office. You can use your phone and do a lot of the things there. And you might not be designing parts on your phone. But the thing is, you can take part in design reviews. You can, if you're an admin person, you can add or remove users, change their rights. All of those things are available for you. Let's go on to problem number 2, serial workflows. So your traditional PDM system, I mentioned before, is there's kind of a check-in and check-out. So it checks data in and checks data out. The interesting thing is all data management systems, doesn't matter who it's by, they all use a database. So why do they use a database? A database is scalable, it's secure, and it allows multiple people to access the same data at the same time. That's why you have a PDM system, so multiple people can access the information. The thing is, and the sad part is CAD isn't like that. CAD, only one person can open a part and modify a part at a time. So what traditionally people are doing is they're taking something that can't be changed by everybody and sticking it in a place where, in theory, it should be able to be changed by everybody, but it can't. That's why we have to do check-ins and check-outs. And when you check something out, no one knows what you're doing. If you don't check it back in, they don't get any of the updates. And then if there is some updates, then you have to go through some other processes to, synchronize or upload the new information or all that type of stuff, just the traditional PDM type stuff. And in Onshape, it's not like that at all. It's real-time collaboration. So when we access data, other people can be accessing our CAD files, our drawings, our assemblies at the exact same time, the same part. So there isn't this concept of files or copies or anything like that. Everybody accesses just like a real database. It is a database. Onshape is basically a database with a CAD system wrapped around it. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about here is one source of truth. A lot of companies say that we have one source of truth. No, they don't. They have a copy of one source of truth. And if somebody changes that copy, then they have to update it so everybody else sees that copied update and that one source of truth. Onshape literally has one source of truth because there's just one product. Everybody has access to it. It's a centralized database. Like I said before, it's in the cloud. So if you can access the cloud, you can access Onshape, you can access your information. You never get logged out or locked out, right? Because somebody has something checked out, you can't get at that data. I've had IT managers say, this guy's on vacation, he had a bunch of work checked out, I don't know his login. How do I get his information off his laptop back into the PDM system so other people can use it? I mean, that's just the typical things that happen with a traditional PDM, PLM system, not with Onshape. Everybody has access to everything, should you give them those rights. So speaking of real-time collaboration, there's a lot of tools built in to Onshape to allow us to do this collaboration. So for instance, we have built-in commenting. So that's how we can exchange information back and forth, like texting back and forth, because we're not always co-located in the same place. We have the ability to follow, so I can follow what somebody is seeing on their screen, and when they zoom up, I see it on my screen zooming up and orienting the exact same way. There's this concept of branching. So I can just take my part that I'm working on or my assembly, create a branch and say, you work on this branch, do some things with it. If I like it, I can merge it back in. If I don't like it, I can just leave it out there. I can come up with a bunch of different ideas, do a design review on the different ideas. The one I like, I can merge that back in. So we're not making copies, we're just branching off of the original idea. You can restore, like I mentioned before, everything is stored forever. So I can go back to any point in time and say, I want this to be my current release or my current version of the part. So the thing is that you never lose your work, and you can go back at any point and see what was done at that particular point. You can compare those different points, where I am now and where I was last Thursday. And I can compare those and see how the part has changed or evolved. I can compare them graphically or feature by feature. There's a live viewing tool, so I could send you a link. Since it's in the cloud, I can just send a link to you and you can call it up. You don't have to log in. You don't have to do anything. The viewing tool, you don't have to do any plugins or anything like that. You're automatically using Onshape and viewing things, zooming in, zooming out, measuring, exploding, things like that. And then I can assign tasks. This is a kind of another PLM, PDM type system where I can go in and assign different work to different people. It appears on their action items panel, and then they can go through and work through things. So we can kind of regiment how we want things to get done. So let's take a look at this for a second. I'm going to call up our model here. Let's call this guy up. So here I have an engine block. And I want to start working with this. One of the things I want to do is enable someone else to see what I'm working on. So I'm going to go over here. I can say share, and I can share this with somebody. So I'm sharing it with somebody from our company called Nick, and I'm giving him rights to edit this. Now I could change his rights so he can just view things. But when he does edit it, what do I want him to do? Can he make a copy of it? Yeah. Can he export it? No, I don't want you to export things. And then, yeah, you can make comments and things like that. So we can close that. So now Nick has access to this, the exact same file. It's not a copy of it or anything else. So I can start working on this, and Nick logs in, and we're going to bring up his screen here. So now Nick logs in, and he can see what I can see. Exact same model. He can do something called follow mode. So when I zoom in, it zooms in on his machine. You notice that my mouse on my screen on the left side is an arrow. On his side is a little hand pointing at things. So I could actually come over here, zoom in on this, and I'm going to say, let's stay in follow mode here. I'm going to pick on the surface. I should make my screen a little bit smaller here. I'm going to pick on the surface. I'm going to right mouse button and say, let's add a comment. And I'm going to say to Nick, you know, can you add a gasket? And so on his screen, if we move it over a little bit here, we'll minimize this guy for a second. You can see that he has that. And then he can reply back to me, you know, sure. So we can communicate back and forth. We can put markups in here. We can put in attach files, you know, anything we can do to kind of help the communication. So Nick's going to work on this part the same time that I'm working on this part. So let's have Nick over here. Like I said, Nick needs to create a gasket. So he'll come over here and say, and I gave him rights, obviously, to work on this. There's a sketch over here. We're going to say, let's kind of extrude that out, and we'll maybe make it maybe a 0.5 millimeter. So that'll be our gasket. We can also come in and say, let's maybe change the color, move our window over a little bit. And we'll close our comment window as well. So the gasket, just to make it stand out a little bit, we'll say, let's make it kind of a light blue color. So now Nick's created his gasket for us. And we can see that here. And you can notice that I see it over here, right? Because it's the same part. Me, on the other hand, I have one ear on our casting here, and I want to make a pattern of those. So I'm going to come in and say, let's make a pattern. And the things that I want to do, this little ear has, you know, some rounds on it and all kinds of things. So I'm just going to say, let's grab some geometry. I'm going to say, let's create kind of a selection list. I'm going to say, let's grab things, since they're all a bunch of rounds and things like that, I could say tangent. So grab things that are all tangent to this face. and it grabs all of that. And I could say, in addition, grab the whole as well. So now all of that is selected, and I can say add that to our circular pattern. Then what axis do you want to pattern it about? I'll say the center here. And let's grab our guys here again. Grab our selection of tangent surfaces, and also this hole, add that. I'm picking the wrong things here. Let's say, all right, tangent surface. And this guy as well. Add that. Pattern that. Oh, our pattern's not working here. Mispicked it. But basically, as I'm doing work here, as I'm making changes, if I were to go in and say, let's put in a round on this, we could also see that propagate onto Nick's model as well. So you can see the holes here. See the holes patterned here. All right. So everything is here. As you can see, things update. We're working on the same thing all the time. So as we continue to develop products, we don't have to check in and check out and sync workspaces and areas and knowledge and models and files and any of that. Everything comes kind of a big benefit from working the same thing on the same time all together. So let's continue looking at this a little bit. We'll move on to some other instances or problems that we can solve with Onshape. The third one is cost. So the PDM, PLM system that you use, right down here, it's on top of your CAD purchase, right? It's an extra item, another line item. And most people don't get them at the same time. So what you do is you develop your products, your parts. After you end up with so many files and things like that, it becomes such a nuisance, hard to manage. That's when you go and buy a PDM system. So after you lay out the money for that, then you have to do data migration, potentially for other legacy data. Again, there's hardware and overhead costs involved with that. Upgrades, service packs, we talked about that. Additional software, multiple locations. If we have our company maybe in different locations, we want to spread that out with localized servers. We have all of that. So a lot of cost involved with a traditional PDM system. Again, with Onshape, everything is built in. All the PDM, PLM functions along with the CAD functions. So things like in a typical system, you might right mouse button on a part in your CAD system, and you can do some editing on it, or you can change its properties or do different things like that. In Onshape, you can also say, where is this part used? Which is typically what you do in a PDM system. In fact, you'd have to leave your CAD system, go into your PDM system, and then grab that part and say, where is it used? I mean, this is way better than having to do two separate, basically two separate applications that are very different from one another. So because it's in the cloud, it's deployed right away for everybody. There's no additional PDM cost because PDM and CAD is all rolled into Onshape. Automatic updates, so we just got an update the other day. Onshape updates the software and the PLM software every 3 weeks. So we just had an update, like I said, yesterday, or it was the day before yesterday, with new enhancements. Everybody gets that. You never have the problem of we're on different versions, right? I can't send you my files because I'm on a newer version. Everybody's on the same version at the same time. Everybody gets the same upgrades at the same time because there's one instance where everybody goes. They go to the cloud to get Onshape, and that's what's getting updated. There's also built-in release management, again, PDM, for our products. So we can send that to somebody to have it reviewed, can either be approved, rejected, sent back for more work. Typical things that you would see. Has a concept of users and roles and teams. I could have a variety of teams, an engineering team, a management team, a manufacturing team, and then distribute information to those teams. Again, just a more efficient way of doing things. Problem number 4 is accessibility and security. So the trade-offs between security and accessibility, it's sort of like a inverse relation. The more secure something is, usually the harder it is to access it. And the thing is that people want to make things a lot more accessible. So if we first of all talk about the instance where we have our system on site, just on site, only there. So we really have just one door to protect, right? People access it through the system here. And we can set up then our virus scanning and our firewalls and all of that type of stuff. Also, we might want to start allowing other people to access this. We basically open up another door to access the information, maybe via the web, maybe some customized web application where we can access our data via the web. Like I said, you open up another door, you got another door you have to secure. So again, there's more information that you have to protect from coming from different directions. So as I said, it's kind of a reverse or inverse type of relationship. The more access you give, the more you have to secure and tie it down. There's no control or visibility of data once it's checked out. So if somebody checks out a model or an assembly or a drawing, I don't know what they're doing with it, right? I know it's checked out. It might tell me who checked it out, but are they copying it? Are they exporting it? What are they doing with it? I don't know until they check it back in, and then I can look at it, right? That's not a really good situation to have. With Onshape, because it's in the cloud and because it is really auditable, right? The analytics in it is unbelievable. Who accesses what from where? So here we have our products, and it'll show us where they're being accessed from. So it's very easy to see, okay, I can see this is, we have a company over here or a division over here. We have one over there. We don't have anybody in Europe. How come these people are accessing our data? Right? Somebody gave them permission to do so. And we'd see who it was, how long they've been using it, and things like that. So all kinds of information that we can get. So when we access information to people, we can do this on a granular level. As we saw that when I was working with the other person, Nick, when we were working together on that engine block, I gave him certain rights. I took away certain rights. I didn't want him to export the file at all, right? Because I don't want it wandering off. I want to have total control over it. He can work on it, he can make changes to it, but he can't export it. So we have granular control over the information that we allow people to have access to. It's a unified company environment, right? Everybody has this. We can set up it, like I said, by role or by whatever method we want to use, but we can control who can do what things and when. It's sort of a whitelist approach of things. It's not like everybody can get at this and then we have to control it. It's sort of like we give control, we give access to different people, and then we control what they can do when they do have that access. I mentioned before the analytics. So here it's giving me some information on where the data is being accessed from. There's a professional version of Onshape, and then there's an enterprise version. The enterprise version really has some in-depth analytics as far as being able to tell what was accessed and when and things like that. I can show you an example of it here. Here we can see information on the different days for over the past month, how much time was spent on what particular product, where it was being accessed from, and what type of work was being done, assembly work, parts, drawings. Were they using their phone when they did this? The interesting thing is about 1 in 8 people use Onshape while they're on their phone. I thought that was a pretty big percentage. And like I said, it's not like you're modeling parts, but you can take part in design reviews. You can check off and make sure things are okay. You can do collaboration with other people. So this type of auditing capability and getting information about who did what and when for how long is really important, and Onshape's really good at keeping track of things like that. And finally, it's just complexity. Traditional PDM system with the checking in and checking out, It's real rigid in the way that they work. You know, you can't do anything to something unless you check it out. And then when you check it out, no one knows what you're doing with it, but we're just going to trust you that, you know, what you're going to do is right and you're going to check it back in. And we can set up, you know, workflows to review things and all of that, but it's just this, engineers have to start to become data management experts, right? Like I said, you can't just right mouse button on your part and say, where is it used if you're not in Onshape? You have to go into the PDM system and find out where it's used and what other things are going to be affected if I make this change. So those type of things are all taken care of by a cloud-based data management CAD system that gives access to people independent of hardware that they're using. A lot of great capabilities. It's a different way of thinking of product development. And it's kind of the wave of the future, right? The cloud, being able to access things with any kind of hardware and be able to share and work together collaboratively on things without having to make a bunch of copies and send those around and have to keep track of them. All that's taken care of in Onshape. So that brings us to our 5 problems. We only had 5 today, but with that, I'm going to turn it back to Sierra. And if there are any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer those.